I've been teaching arts for around 20 years, and I did a double take when I saw this movie title design for 3 reasons. First, it's written in Blackletter style calligraphy, which is one of my favorites. But more important than that, it's written using a particular style that's perfect for beginners to learn. The second reason is the way it's designed breaks more than a few rules of Blackletter calligraphy. Finally, the fact that it breaks all these rules teaches a really important lesson. Let's start by going through 5 ways the title design breaks the rules. And by the way, I'll be covering both versions of the logo that came out leading up to the release of the movie. The first broken rule is easy to miss, but it's actually pretty obvious. It applies to both versions, but it's most clear with this one. The design starts with a lowercase letter. I mean, this one doesn't just break the rules of blackletter calligraphy or calligraphy in general, but our most basic rules of capitalization and writing. If I compare the first letter N with this collection of capitals and this collection of lowercase letters, it clearly fits in more with the lowercase letters. And with version 1 of the design, it's not even sized any larger than any of the other lowercase letters. So that's the first rule the title design breaks. The next one's related to a really common question that comes up when learning blackletter calligraphy. One of the most common questions that comes up in blackletter classes I've taught over the years is how much space to leave between letters and words. The quick answer is unfortunately that it depends, and I can dive into that topic in another video. Let me know in the comments if you're interested. But back to this design, the amount of space between the letters, again especially in the first version, is way more than would commonly be used. Let's just take an example from a historical manuscript and make the sizes of the title design and the text from the manuscript the same. See how incredibly wide the Nosferatu spacing is? This is super unusual for blackletter calligraphy. In fact, one of the reasons this style of calligraphy got the name blackletter is that as the text fills up a page, it looks like it's covered by a bunch of black ink from the tightly spaced words and letters. And since we're talking about comparing with traditional styles, let's move on to the next infraction. This one's a little harder to notice, but easier to detect once you're aware of it, or if you're familiar with blackletter calligraphy already. The letters are super stretched out vertically. Let's dig into what I mean with a little bit of background. In calligraphy, lettering, and typography, we have a way of sizing letters based on some key measurements. The most basic of these is the X height, which is the height of what we'll call standard lowercase letters like A, C, E, and S. It's the distance from the baseline, the line at the bottom, to the waistline, the line at the top. On top of the X height, we leave room for ascenders, or the parts of some letters like B, D, and F that stretch above the waistline. Below the X height, we leave room for descenders, or the parts of some letters like G, P, and Y that hang below the baseline. In blackletter calligraphy, we often describe the sizes of these spaces, the X height, ascender, and descender, in terms of nib widths, or how wide the broad edge is of the pen we're writing with. Sometimes with writing guides, you'll even see these represented as a stack of checkered boxes on the left edge. With most alphabets, the X heights range from around 4 to 5 nib widths, with a few variations here and there. But the Nosferatu design, it clocks in at a massive 9 nib widths. That's way more than any traditional script and super unusual, which brings us to another unusual choice. Remember a second ago where I mentioned the S being a standard letter that fits within the X height? Well, in this design, did you notice that the S has a descender? Instead of ending at the baseline, the second to last stroke extends beyond it into the descender area. This is another design choice that goes against the way the letter's written in traditional scripts, but it's a choice that I'm definitely a fan of. In fact, I do this all the time in designs I make, and you can even see it in most of the live streams I've done here on the channel. Which brings us to the last and possibly craziest rule-breaking design choice we'll chat about today. Remember the first broken rule we talked about of starting the design with a lowercase n? Well, in the second version of the design, a capital T is used right in the middle of the word. So we started the word with a lowercase letter, and now we're adding a capital letter right in the middle. How cool is that? So we've gone through 5 ways this logo design breaks the rules of calligraphy. But why does this matter? This gets us to the most important lesson in going through all of this. Calligraphy is an art, and just like there are rules with any creative work, I suggest you think of them more as guidelines. This design breaks some of the most basic rules of blackletter calligraphy, even writing in general, but it works. You might not have even noticed them before because you looked at the design as a whole, as an artistic expression of the movie title. The key here is you're free to play, experiment, and have fun with your art. Sure, there are guidelines that are especially helpful when you're learning, but you don't always have to follow them. When you sit down to write, it's your world to create, so have some fun and break some rules. And if this little deep dive has piqued your curiosity about calligraphy, I've got a collection of tools that explains everything you need to know to get started, whether you're interested in learning by hand, using a digital tool like Procreate, or both. You can download it for free at blackletterfreebies.com or using the link in the description. Even if you're a complete beginner and have never tried calligraphy before, you can totally learn to write both versions of this very logo design by following along with this tutorial and using the guide sheets that are included with the free downloads. In the meantime, keep writing, keep playing, and have an absolutely fantastic day. I'll see you next time.